everyone for attending this conference. We're now at the final session. This session is going to be around the future of crypto. And to introduce and to moderate the panel, we have Dinis Guarda. So I'm handing over to you. Thank you, Dinis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Still awake from a great day, great discussions. And it was actually very insightful for me, and I'm sure for all of you, what we've been discussing in the last 2 days. Congratulations to Vara and to Professor Paolo Tasca and all the organization, because putting this together is not a small thing. And just the panel and the people here have been a lot of intellectual capacity. So to contextualize this last panel, I think, well, this of course is a Pandora box of possibilities, the future of crypto. So we have 4 fantastic speakers and as well industry powerhouses that represent actually probably some of the biggest organizations in the world in their areas. But just a couple of notes. So when we think about the future of crypto, and during the last 2 days we discussed this, we think about digital assets, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and then we have, of course, all the stable coins, and a lot of things and innovation like Web3. We shouldn't touch much, but it's massive as well. So I want to just touch some numbers because to talk about the future, we have to talk about the present. So as we speak in 2024, we have around the 2.4 million cryptocurrencies, 752 exchanges. The market cap of the entire cryptocurrencies worldwide is $2.31 trillion. And the NFT market size is 3.5. And the blockchain industry, as we speak, is around $10 billion. The stablecoin market is a bit more linear. There's not completely numbers for that. And the DeFi market, which is quite interesting, is $120 billion as we speak. So, and then just looking at 2030, we're going to have probably some of the predictions is that the market cap for cryptocurrencies can go to $10 trillion. And the market size for NFTs eventually $8 billion. And the blockchain industry, $60 billion. So the numbers are going, so if you look, 2030 is 7 years from now. We are here in Dubai, which is one of the most innovative places on earth around these topics. But the challenge that we're facing right now is how we take this to masses, how we adopt and how we use this as utility. And without further notice, I want to pass, so just as a contextualization, we're going to have here 4 representatives of global organizations. So we have a representative of Vara, and they're going to introduce a representative of a blockchain powerhouse, Hedera, a blockchain of a representation of one of the biggest crypto Web3 organizations, in this case a payment organization, WordPlay, and last but not least, of course, the G20 organization for financial stability, which is key for us. So, pass the word to make introductions, probably starting with Vara, the host, and then passing to you guys.
There we are. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your time today. My name is McHugh. I'm the Senior Director of Vara, in charge of market assurance. That's the licensing, supervision, and digital assurance verticals. Thanks for being here.
So Peter Goodrich, I'm at the Secretariat of the Financial Stability Board. We are a part of the G20 covering global financial stability. So we identify global financial stability risks and coordinate policies among our members.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. My name is Betsabe Botaitis, CFO of Hedera.
Hello, everyone. Saiprasad Raut. I'm the Strategy Director for Crypto and the Web3 arm in WordPlay.
Okay, so the first question, and I think we have to tailor this because all of you represent completely different things, so I'm going to break a bit the dishes on this. So when you talk about the future, we have to talk about the present. And I think probably the biggest challenge of the future of crypto, is adoption and utility. Of course, we have fantastic case studies, but we are as well right now coming into AI. So all of these things are going to be more interesting and more challenging. But effectively, one thing I want to highlight is that at the moment we digitize the entire world economy. So everything. So creating digital twins from us to our assets, everything. So my first question, and probably starting with Vara, is you guys are building a lot of things. So how do you see all the things that you're doing right now on the present affecting the next 5, 10 years in terms of the future of crypto, but as well adoption by the people of Dubai and worldwide?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do from a regulatory standpoint is encourage innovation, encourage growth of the space, but in a safe way with guardrails, and in particular, certain things we're quite focused on protecting customer protection, especially new entrants. Anti-money laundering is a very big focus here, and for those of you who have asked here, no, we cannot overemphasize that more. Also, the financial stability of the space. We're basically, as we license and supervise more VAS, and I focus a lot on what I call crypto capital markets and the build out of that. And so a lot of it is, do we have enough custodians? Do we have enough exchanges? Do we have enough, brokers? And what's our focus on retail and the like? Also as part of what Dubai is doing here as part of our D33, and the future is Dubai is a TradFi financial hub, maybe one of 4 globally, and that this is the virtual asset hub. Beating out Singapore or Miami or wherever else we think might be a challenger, but with the view that we want to make sure that, quite honestly, for me, that the kind of casino aspect of meme coins doesn't detract from real use cases for crypto, like payment rails and stuff that might ultimately be boring to a lot of people. It's not guys in Lambos talking about getting rich, but it's actually ultimately we might allow us to kind of rework the plumbing of the financial industry beyond just these assets.
So, and you guys are doing great work on that. So passing to you, Peter. So you are, of course, part of the G20 stability group. So how we get what was said before between the stability and the scalability, but as well on the G20, I think for everyone to know, what are you guys doing and what you're thinking to do for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, at the FSB, I think our main role is really coordinating the policy response globally. So within the FSB, our members are obviously the G20 countries. Within each of those, we bring together their central banks, their finance ministries, their financial supervisors, their market regulators, as well as other relevant international organizations, the IMF, the different standard setters. So it's really all the relevant financial stakeholders come around one single table, and we agree on a common set of principles of how they want to regulate the crypto asset market. How do we do that? Last July, we published a set of high-level recommendations for the regulation, supervision, and oversight of crypto asset markets and activities. So that really sets out, I think, a clear direction where the G20 countries are headed. Now, they might get there at different timelines, they might get there in a different way, but at least the principles are clear, I think, in terms of what regulation you can expect. We're also working on promoting the implementation of these recommendations. It takes time. Obviously, some jurisdictions need to change their legislative process, some jurisdictions need to change their legal framework. So it does take time, but that's our focus right now.
Thank you. Betsabe, so you represent one of the biggest blockchain protocols and token as well worldwide, and you are a CFO as well. So how do you see what is happening in terms of mass adoption, and how can we go to this future of crypto that is, I think, utopian, or at least future utopia?
Well, I hope it's not future utopia. I hope that it's going to be just right here in the corner for next year. From my corner, what I see first as a CFO, at Hedera, I see a lot of our council members. As many of you may know, Hedera is different from other layers ones because it's governed by a group of entities. We have up to 39 council members, and they all are trying to understand the technology and use it for either efficiencies, internal efficiencies, or for a new core competency, building new core competencies. What I see outside that is a huge appetite, the desire to learn, the desire to actually solve real problems in companies. Yesterday I was at a conference, at a Fortune conference, and pretty much every single chief innovation officer, strategy, or CEO that I spoke of, they're like, yes, we want to use it. Yes, we want to learn it. My concern is that we have this group of innovators here that want to learn it, but we're not bringing everyone along. As a CFO, what I see is a huge gap in helping make this conversation a lot simpler and easier so that CFOs, treasurers, accountant, they all understand how to empower the innovation side, and we are really partners. So I'm very hopeful that as we all have these conversations and we start branching out and start bringing everyone along in the organization, we can also focus on other areas about network effects. I really think that another concern is not having enough developers. And one of the things that is just recently happened in Latin America, Argentina just has this mandate that every single engineer before graduating must learn Solidity, which is the first university that does that. So they are building the pipeline in engineers so the innovators can actually start saying, oh, now there is a bigger portion. But what I do see, again, from the Hedera side is appetite, but also see that we ourselves complicated. We need to bring everyone along. And from the other side, huge appetite, and this is important. There is product market fit. We just need to ensure that the adoption becomes a reality by ensuring we are making it simple and having more conversations beyond this group, not just or blockchain crypto people.
Well, that's a key thing, and I think that's what we've been discussing here the last 2 days. So, Sai, you represent one of the biggest payment non-crypto organization worldwide, and you have transactions quite massive. So, you are responsible for crypto and Web3. So, how you are pushing a traditional payment company to the crypto world and taking it forward for this future of crypto?
Yeah, sure. So just to give you an idea, we are currently serving 147 countries with 1 million plus merchants across the world, with 52 billion of the transactions, and which has like 2.3 trillion that we are currently processing. So you can understand the existing merchant spectrum that we are currently covering. We started with our journey with the crypto arm in 2017 when we thought we can also serve some of those, especially the exchanges. So we started, onboarding the centralized exchanges, and so far now we have 90 plus merchants on our books, especially or on the centralized exchanges, OTC desks, and NFT marketplaces. So while we were doing this, we also thought about how we can kind of empower ourselves more onto the crypto and the Web3 journey. We also partnered with Hedera as one of the governing council member. We started kind of exploring the use cases, and with that thought, I think when we also conducted this survey with the merchants, what we realized is for them to get exposed to the crypto without getting those volatility concerns, the first, I would say, the expectation was to how they can prevent themselves with those risks and issues there. So we partnered with Circle and the Fireblocks to have the stablecoin offerings for our merchants. So we are currently, on the monthly basis, almost 30 plus millions that we are currently serving to our existing crypto merchants for the stablecoin settlement. And we are planning to have more such stablecoins to be settled for the merchants who wants to kind of get settled. So if you want to understand, you have issuers, and then you have financial institutions like Visa and the MasterCard, and payment acquirers like WordPlay, and then merchants. These four pillars, we get the fiat from the financial institutions like Visa, and then we convert this to the stable coins, and then we settle this to the merchants on their respective addresses. So that's what we have been kind of successful on our Web3, on the crypto journey so far. But eventually in the future, we are planning to have more such offering for our merchants in a form of, let's say, stablecoin yield making options, and they probably can have wallet as a service as one of the thing where they can offer this to their customers as well through. So WordPlay is kind of trying to put forward those efforts to have the journey for their merchant offerings in the crypto world.
So one question for you, Sai. So if you look at your numbers and transaction pure on data, what would be the adoption of crypto that you have, or numbers? Because we're talking about around 1 billion people, less than 1 billion people using crypto in some ways.
So for us, because we are B2B, for us, we are not actually the customer facing, but from the merchant adoption perspective, if you look at our existing books, as I said, we have 1+ million merchants, which are currently on the fiat side, and we are 90+ merchants. So all these merchants are crypto native, but in order to have our merchants who are not crypto native and convert them into the crypto side of it, it's going to be, I think we will talk about those challenges as well now.
Okay. So Betsabe, so you're representing Hedera, and you have, of course, a token. So you touch a lot the challenge and the adoption and the utility, which is the biggest elephant in the room when we talk about crypto. So what do you think can be done, besides the education and the developers, to take this to bigger audiences and demystify from once and for all? Because scams happen in any industry, it's not just in crypto. I think crypto still has a very negative industry that I think is not actually fair, bear in mind all the academics in the room and all the work done. So what can be done to take this forward?
Excellent question. So, in my humble opinion, first we need to really simplify our language. I feel like we make it complicated, and many times when I have sat down, even with, sat down with central banks, or sat down with, again, enterprises, CEOs, or chief strategy innovative officers, the first comment is, wow, I understand it because you're speaking layman terms. Sometimes it's too complicated for them, and that creates barriers. The other one is, it really takes a village to create something new. It takes many people within an organization. There are many different groups and many different work streams, and there is not enough focus on how to make those work streams a lot efficient and really build like a path, almost like a path forward or a blueprint for that adoption, particularly in the area of finance. As a CFO, I feel like I'm often in the multiverse. I have to work on fiat from many different currencies and also tokens, which is token economics, highly complicated. So we don't expect that for every CFO. So how can you really build a blueprint that when a CFO of a public company or a CFO of a mid-weight company, even a startup, it's like, wow, what are the accounting systems? As simple as that. What are the accounting systems I'm going to use that will enable me to keep clean and tracking and control, monitoring and reporting of my digital assets positions, and that can easily integrate to my fiat positions. So what people don't see on the back end, as on the finance side, when we do all that work, it's not magic. It's a lot. It's almost magic, art and magic in a way. It's a lot of work, and it's like literally living in two words. We have to do forecast analysis on the fiat side, forecast analysis on a highly volatile new asset class, and then we had to bring it together. We have to collaborate. And then the question for the companies is, does that mean that I need to triple my team? Does that mean that I need to, how do I get the talent? Is there actually talent out there that can understand that? So if we start again, and I keep coming back with this, making it simple. Let's change our mindset, talk about simple terms, and start focusing, okay, what else do we need to make it simple for finance team, for the compliance team? And there are great compliance tools, and I use them, but they're complicated. It comes to a point like, okay, I spent an hour and a half, 2 hours, I haven't gotten my answer, now next. And sometimes it's like 30 seconds. For me, it's the rule of 30 seconds. How 30 seconds, get the information, how it can be self-serving, how it can be, we're in the world, we're in the era of data. How do you verify the data? How do you integrate the data? How do you ensure that the data is accurate at every single point on the organization? So when we start doing that, I have no question we're going to see an exponential adoption. But the adoption doesn't come because there are not enough use cases. It's not because there are not enough need. It's because it's so complicated on the back end.
So product UI UX. That's very simplify on this.
Not only product and UX, that's the front face, but it is the supporting tools. We forget there, like, and again, as a finance professional, we forget we need to have new accounting tools, systems that can integrate, tools that can help me predict on token economics. I mean, incredibly, difficult. Yes, if working a lot on that, and it takes a long time. So it's just that tooling that is necessary to.
So you need to
run
simplify like Apple, terms and conditions, done. So Peter, so you have a big responsibility, of course, dealing with the 20 most powerful economies in the world. I know that it's not easy to make everyone agree. So if I would ask you, what is the biggest thing you achieve, and of course in the present and future of crypto, and what you think can be done to take these people to act and to get this alignment? Because of course we cannot stop it. It's just how we do it and get it better.
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, I think, so the first step was obviously just getting our members to agree on the principles that we published. I mean, that wasn't easy. We have lots of different members with different viewpoints and agendas, and so getting everybody to agree, I think that was the first challenge. Now it's getting everybody, all these countries, to implement these standards. So to go from high-level international policies, which we don't have any legal authority, we can't enforce anything. It's up to our members to implement these in their countries. That's the next step, and then I think we're just the G20. So obviously, crypto is borderless in nature, and you've seen, and it was mentioned yesterday, we did a synthesis paper with the IMF. We're working on a status report to that, which we'll publish next week, so check our website on Wednesday, I think it'll be out. One of the big things that we're trying to do is promote implementation beyond the G20 so that more countries are adopting regulatory frameworks, because if the G20 implements this, then a lot of the bad actors will just go to the next layer of countries. They'll just keep moving around. And so the more we can have regulatory frameworks that are implemented and kind of leave no place for those bad actors to find a home, I think then there'll be a much safer, more stable crypto environment.
Completely, and that is the key thing. So, Shan, digital assets is probably the biggest volume when it comes to crypto and the tokenization of, we mentioned real estate, and there's a lot of things, healthcare and so forth. So Vara has been making a fantastic work in terms of, like you said, becoming one of the top 4 worldwide, and narrative probably number 1, at least in credibility, which is fantastic achievement. So how do you see this kind of narrative for special digital assets, and what are you doing that can actually aim towards a bigger future, but as well a more secure future?
Sure, and related to that, I wanted to touch on, I think a lot of what you said earlier was quite profound, and in terms of the future of crypto, it starts now in education. I'm not talking about the university level, it's more on a consumer education, to have, what is adoption? Adoption will be getting people to understand it's safe to go in the water. Vara recently put out our new marketing guidelines. Marketing and education are not synonyms, right? Part of marketing can be education. But how do we get a new generation to kind of understand this space? My teenage daughter doesn't know much about crypto, but if Taylor Swift put out a meme coin, she's probably going to buy it, right? So how do we manage these things? And I do think if 10 years from now we're in this room and we're talking about crypto, and it was just 10 years of basically a high vol trading asset, like a fancy penny stock, then we've kind of failed, right? But to go to your point about tokenization, et cetera, it bleeds into that, because when we look at, okay, what are the guardrails we can get around tokenization, right? A big part of it, okay, what is the underlier, right? That's a very TradFi term, but if it's a warehouse of gold, right? What happens if someone runs away with the gold? What happens there? Like how, what is the bankruptcy remoteness? What is the fraud prevention around that? And who would that go to? And this goes to the education. Do people understand what they're buying, right? You're not buying a structured note, right? You're not buying stock in a gold company. You're buying a token. What does that mean? And, this has been a bit of a definition that's moved around a lot. But it's a great way for people who are in this ecosystem to kind of be able to stay in the ecosystem and purchase, like it's like a supermarket that adds a new section, right? Now you got a good produce section. You can kind of buy stuff you couldn't buy before. But again, how do we protect those people? And how do we? And we would look for folks who issue these. to make sure they're taking quality things to market. We try not to judge on a commercial side. Like we really, we regulate activity, virtual asset activity. We try to be agnostic on business model and technology and et cetera. We're very interested in those things, but just how Avast will manage that, scale that up from we want a global standard on compliance and control framework. But when it comes to issuing tokens and coins, we're very much focused on, okay, well, what should come to market? Quite honestly, what would be good for Dubai? Like what would I'll speak for myself, Vara. What would I want to put my name next to? Not necessarily I think it's a good investment or a sound commercial product, but what would I put my name next to?
Can I make it?
Go ahead.
I just want to make a quick anecdote. When you were talking about, you mentioned about your daughter and education. One of the things that I share is when look at future and look at legacy, who better than the people in front of us, those little ones or kids. And one time I was talking to my daughter and we were going, my husband and I, through like financial planning, like what happened if something happened to us. She looked at me and she says, Mom, don't worry, just give me your private key. I'm like, she's 8 years old. I'm like, I need to make sure that everything is protected. If she wants the private key for the future. So that's kind of the future that we are building ultimately. That's the legacy. Yeah.
Okay, picking on that, and I think that's probably, we are finishing in a while, but so I want to touch the most successful case when it comes to crypto is definitely blockchain. I think everyone agrees on that worldwide, and of course, it's still the biggest market, and I think the adoption is massive from Oracle to Amazon to Google, everyone is using it, even if it's sometimes a marketing tool, but it's still massive adoption. So, starting with you, and I would like to pass this question in different ways to all of you guys. So, Sai, in your case, you guys, of course, are touching a huge amount of money. We're talking about trillions, and that you cannot screw up. So, from the technology that you've been building, and I think it's interesting to share that. I don't think we touch enough on the blockchain part. What would be the areas that you thought that you succeeded, and what can be done to take this case study bigger for the future?
Yeah, of course. So we have been successful pushing this stablecoin settlement for the merchants, but when it comes to kind of making this more scalable and reaching out to the more audience from our perspective, I think there are a few challenges that obviously what we see is, on the infrastructure side, whether those underlying infrastructure are robust, secure, on the speed, right? We are also talking about higher TPS and stuff like that. And also on the regulatory side, we face because we are a global company, right? And we have launched this in US, but when we move to Europe, we have to look at whether that particular stablecoin is MiCA compliant or not. Circle just got that compliance license. Now we want to add up to more stable coins. There is a demand from the merchants that, we want to have some of those interoperability as well. So how this part can be handled and challenged from the interoperability perspective. So that's something that we are also looking at, making sure that merchant gets that seamless experience. And from the business case perspective, why they would move from getting the fiats on their bank account and move to stable coins. There has to be underlying significant benefits for the merchants. So creating those case studies are, I think, the most profound benefits that merchant will see, and that will drive this adoption, I think, in the future.
Fantastic. So, Betsabe, of course, you, Hedera, you guys are doing a lot of, as one of the biggest blockchain players. So, what are the things you feel that have been succeeding? Because we need to talk about the case studies that are successful, and what are you doing to make this bigger? As a CFO, I'm sure you want to grow the numbers as well.
Yeah, but I cannot talk about the numbers. Absolutely, on the ESG and carbon tracking, there has been a lot of appetite and growth. We have a specific verticals, and one of them is decentralized finance. Stable coins, of course, is something that we keep hearing, and it will continue to grow. We expect a huge boom in 2025. There is more of the general purpose ledger, layer one, but we will see over time more concentration on those areas, which is the carbon tracking, ESG cases, decentralized finance, and data integrity. One of the superpowers, let's call it, of Hedera is the ability to process high volumes of data. We do not need a layer 2. And an amazing study that USL did is about Hedera consuming 1,000 times less energy than one transaction in Visa. Definitely, if you haven't read that report, you definitely should read it. And all that puts Hedera in a very incredibly position to be integral, really in the intersect of AI and blockchain. How blockchain is going to help verify the data on AI. There are some use cases that we have worked in terms of AI is creating wrong images or fake images on news. So how do you verify those are real ones? Most recently in the hurricane, the reports in the hurricane in the US, in the East Coast, they were news and reports completely incorrect. So we are seeing that data integrity being one of the most biggest use cases as of right now as well.
Oh, that's a great one. And so, Peter, on that level, I know that you guys are doing a lot of security around AI, around blockchain, and as well, of course, on crypto. So from a G20 and the work you're doing with the Stability Center, what would be the areas that you feel that are more mature, especially when it comes to blockchain and crypto, that you've been seeing in the work you guys have been doing, but as well with the talking with all the 20 countries that you guys represent?
Yeah, so I think, so we'll publish our report next week, and we'll have some interesting survey data there on the 20 FSB countries, plus another about 50. We have regional groups. And so I think among kind of some of the top areas of concern that we see, I think the cross-border challenges are huge in this space, both the kind of borderless nature of crypto, but then one of the main kind of objectives that we have at the FSB is trying to prevent regulatory fragmentation. So that's why we're really trying to push a global framework and consistency. I mean, outside of the FSB, so we cover financial stability risk, although our members obviously have broader mandates. I mean, I think the anti-money laundering concerns are top of mind for many of our members when they think about the crypto asset markets. The other thing, and this will be in our report next week, so you get a bit of a preview, I think a lot of our members are struggling with the enforcement challenges and a lot of the kind of, I guess what we refer to as the culture of non-compliance in the crypto asset sector. It's just a lot more work for when countries are implementing frameworks to go through the licensing process and to get these VASPs kind of up to speed. It's taking longer. There has to be more resources. And then when they see bad actors, the enforcement cases are taking more resources. They need more cross-border cooperation. So again, those are some of the key areas that we're focused on. Maybe just quickly on the DLT point, you know, as Sean mentioned, our FSB recommendations, we're technology neutral. So, you know, you won't see anything in our recommendations about how to do something with DLT. That's just the underlying technology. Our recommendations are focused on things like governance, risk management, disclosures, and you know, it's up to the industry to figure out how they can meet those recommendations or those standards with the technology that they want to use. And we're not trying to kind of pick or choose different commercial models over others.
Oh, excellent. So, Shannon, the last one before the question. So, one of the biggest success of if you look at the internet success as a global powerhouse that changed the entire world, was the narrative of Silicon Valley. It was a space where you can create miracles. And the technology is the miracles driver. And you come from Wall Street, so you have as well the miracles of finance, for good and for bad. But from a perspective, Dubai is becoming a bit one of these kind of miracle places that whatever you love it or hate, everyone has respect. So one of the things that is critical for the future of crypto is precisely the narrative, and as well places that have positive elements that everyone can identify, and they feel, okay, this is safe. So I know that you guys have been working a lot for that. So what are you doing to make this future a better future, and the present that is future?
Well, you know, Vara is one piece of a broad strategy here, right? We're 2 years old, and you know, one thing I've said as someone who moved to Dubai, you know, you hear a lot about Dubai, about the dreams, how they transform this place, et cetera. But you know, Dubai gets a lot of credit for the big dreams. A lot of countries have big dreams. Dubai doesn't get as much credit as the flawless execution on getting this stuff done, like in no time at all. We were down at GITEX down in Dubai Harbor. 4 years ago that was the sea, right? And all of a sudden you got so many people you can't get a taxi, and so I couldn't see America pulling that off, to be honest with you, and I'm a proud American. But I think where we see here is as our ecosystem grows, then the areas that serve that, so that's the banks and the law firms and the job market, and where we try to do is how are we creating also opportunities for local Emiratis in this space, so it's not just a bunch of foreigners doing it, but most importantly, I think, is to really stand up where do we want to be in terms of how we stand up, as I mentioned, our crypto capital markets, my own view, not Vara's, so where we have interconnection, a bit like the big TradFi financial hubs have always been, where it's easier. You don't have to fly everybody in terms of hiring, and then the technology companies, the DLTs, the smart contract people, kind of start to want to stick around then. So then, it maybe looks a little more like Shenzhen did than Silicon Valley, right? But, having that broader ecosystem, then it'll attract grads, et cetera, et cetera. But once you've got that momentum, and again, Vara's job in this is to make sure it's in a safe way, right? There's a reason why there's speed bumps near schools and there's not speed bumps on highways, right? So we don't treat every client the same or every business model the same. But once you get that done and you do it right and you supervise it well and you manage it well, not just at Vara but at the firms, then it takes off on its own. And no one really remembers how Silicon Valley started. It's just kind of always been there for a lot of people.
That's excellent. So last thing, one sentence, what is the future of crypto for each of you? One sentence.
I'll start. To me, it's payments ultimately. I think this is not. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take your payments comment, but as someone who's far away from the technology, what you do, I do think, as I mentioned, in 10 years, if we're talking about meme coins, where right now you see is a big delta between the top 10 coins and everything else, and if we're still talking about these types of areas we're probably losing. If we get to the unbanked in sub-Saharan Africa, different parts of the world, and we think they're safe and AML compliant for a guy like me, et cetera, I think that's the sunny future.
For me, I'd say certainly regulation is coming. Countries will implement frameworks. It takes time. Financial regulators are not the most innovative or fastest in the world, so they're more conservative. They'll take their time. They're going to implement a framework, but eventually there'll be more regulation.
So for me, I would like to build a picture. So for me, it would be coming to the comment about my daughter. It will be in a world where I don't have to build all these contracts and agreements. It's just going to be a smart contract, and if an event happen, then a result. There's going to be a world when I walk to a restaurant and I don't have to tell them my allergies. They will already know it because it's all data on the blockchain and they're going to be all interconnected. There's going to be a world where when I go to a doctor's, I don't have to, for the 100th time, to write everything again when they don't have my records, where I can just click permission, authorization, access controls on the blockchain, and they can access it and be able to know it. There's going to be a world when blockchain is going to be the baseline infrastructure of connectivity for data, when it makes our lives easier, and when we're going to have more control of how to share it.
I'll talk from the payments perspective. So this is my favorite example. We all seen the rise of the banking industry, and you might have seen this movie Catch Me If You Can. There were many banking scams that had happened, and eventually, if you look at the existing banking system, we have more sophisticated way to prevent the scams, and having those consumer offerings. So I think we are all learning from these experiences when we are kind of taking this crypto and the Web3 journey. I mean, we have seen the scams, we have seen the failures of those, exchanges, and there are new founders who are coming up with the new concepts. And at the same time, we are having the revolutions from the 5G, IoT, AI. So I think all these are kind of combining together. In the future, definitely we have the better world where we are protecting the consumers. Also, will have more of the Web 2 experience, and you will not even know, just like you are using the internet today, you will not know how that underlying infrastructure, whether it's using Hedera or whether it's using WorldPay, but it is actually giving you the seamless experience.
So, no, my answer is, I think, synthesizing what you guys said, for me, is about how we simplify things. And like you said, you make it seamless, because that's the most important thing. And like you said, security. I think that is the key thing. Without security, there's nothing. But well, passing, I think we have space for 1 or 2 questions. Yeah.
Hi guys. What I really like about this panel, I think you all represent different interests, and I mean, Sai, either way you make money, whether it's fiat or crypto. Betsabe, you're obviously pro-crypto, but I'm really interested in Sean and Peter because I actually don't see you on the same side. If I think about Peter, I think he represents incumbent interests, and the US is probably overweight and has made very clear its regulatory outlook on securities and banks. And yet, Sean, you're leading at the frontier market end. I'm not sure I want Peter's regulations over the rest of the frontier markets because I think he's conflicted. So I don't know, not to put you against each other, but I'd love to hear how you feel about his regulations coming over Dubai.
Sure, I'll start with me. So, as you can tell by my accent, I'm a regulatory refugee here from my home country. With the view that, you know, I will say very briefly about the United States, I do think, you know, I was at a conference in Singapore at Token 2049, and folks were talking about the Americanization of Bitcoin, you know, which just sounds scary, but it's basically, you know, the ETF front, et cetera, which I think ultimately are going to bring in the major players. And, you know, you might see more people with suits and ties, you know, at some of these conferences, or guys who usually wear suits and ties trying to look cool like me. But I understand your point. I do think there is, like, from a prudential regulatory standpoint, from a global financial system standpoint, there's room for Peter's regulations, and but you know, as we get into where the rubber hits the road, I think we need regulators, which I really aspire to being, that are open-minded, but also, you know, I get paid to be skeptical, right? You know what I mean? And I get paid to say, look for the edge cases and what could go wrong. I get paid to help protect UAE customers who I'll never meet. And so a big part of what I look for is, you know, not how can everything go wrong, because then I wouldn't get out of bed, but, you know, how do you build something? How do you go back and engage with VASP as to, people think we set the guardrails. Very often we're asking the VASP to set their guardrails, and we're just testing if they're enough.
Yeah, I mean, fair question, I guess. So I should have said it at the beginning too. At the FSB, we don't think crypto markets are a global financial stability risk. They could if they scale up rapidly. So I think, you know, the prudential regulations, in my mind, really become important if you start seeing, you know, very, very large crypto asset intermediaries, or if Tether becomes 10 times bigger than it is right now. I mean, if you see players in the crypto market become the size of, you know, GSIB banks, the global largest banks, which was my previous role supervising those guys. I mean, that's very, very different from the size of the crypto market today. And I think that's, in my mind, that's kind of where you'll start seeing a bigger change toward prudential regulation versus kind of more market-based type of regulation that I think is currently the approach.
Which one didn't?
As in, I see you, I don't see why you should necessarily take his regulations as practice, because they don't have an interest in Dubai emerging as a new financial center. They'd rather keep it New York, London, Singapore. So they love to export their regulations here because it maintains the incumbency players, whereas we're trying to be a new jurisdiction, new ideas. Maybe it's the frontier markets that should be able to...
No, I follow you. And listen, best practices are just that, though, right? Like, we don't expect them to be imposed on us, but I'm very much interested in tuition-free lessons from other jurisdictions, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, all the cars here have seat belts and brake lights and airbags, right? I don't think Dubai came up with that on their own, right? It's okay to see the mistakes in other jurisdictions. I get your point. There's a fine balance. I don't want these, colonialists taking over my space. But I'm happy to steal stuff from their work, quite honestly.
So thank you very much for your panel. I don't have a one-to-one question, which if I have, I take over the coffee. I have a question for all the panel. Talking about the future, let's talk about the biggest economy in the world, which is the US. Certainly we are in the UAE, which is a fantastic, vibrant economy, forward-looking, but still the US is the biggest economy. And talking about the future and the present, how Gary Gensler failed the crypto industry, so as also probably also the Congress. What is your hope for the next presidential election, and what this could bring in the future for us? Thank you.
Well, I'll start, I guess. So also as an American, I mean, personally, I would say crypto is very low on my agenda for the election. There's much other bigger important issues, but yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well, the crypto industry is the first donor of both parties this year. The first time in the history.
Yes, that's right. So, of course, I think I know the election you're talking about. And so the reality TV show of Trump versus Harris, and the fact that they're all taking crypto and they're trying to out crypto bro each other is really, it's entertaining. But the reality is the game to watch is who takes over Congress and who takes over the financial services, committees and that sort of thing in both houses. That'll tell you how quickly America is going to get there. America's going to get there. The question is how quickly. That's my take.
At Hedera, we have an amazing chief public policy officer, and she has done an amazing work working with both parties. I have the luxury to take her place in one event because she couldn't attend, and I had the opportunity to actually meet with both parties, and one of the parties on the Democratic Party. We ended up the conversation with a sentence when the Congresswoman went off script and said, "I'm gonna get a wallet. I'm gonna get my private key, and you're gonna teach me." The only reason that happened and we were able to get that statement is because I changed the language in terms of making it simple. And this is exciting, let's make it simple. Everyone needs to hear it. But in terms directly on the elections, I agree with you. It is not who wins. It is what's going to happen on how the Congress gets educated, how the Finance Service Committee gets educated, how the Wealth Management Financial Inclusion Committee get educated, how us as an industry have those conversations with those committees that we together can help Congress and other policymakers to actually understand and make the right decisions in terms of protecting the citizens, the community, the industries, and actually start understanding it and adopt them. Education is at the core.
Yeah. I think if you look at our books currently, we have very less merchants on the US side because of this main issue, because the regulations and, on the clarity side, we don't have many such merchants that we could expand on the US side. I think this one, after the election, if we have this regulation and regulatory clarity, I mean, Trump is saying he'll fire Gary, but we don't know who will be the next. And whoever comes next will have to have more clarity on the regulation side for the financial institutions like us, to set us our strategy in that specific jurisdictions, because of that, what we are trying to do is we are having more such focus on the European and Asian and other markets. I think that will open the doors for us, at least on the payment side. And I think the more such clarity is there, I think even for the crypto side, even on the investment side and the builder side, they will have more concentration. Probably next year we will have this conference in Vegas, maybe.
Yeah, I completely subscribe what you said. Just three things I think we can summarize. So education is the key element, and the education, but as well narrative. I've been working with regulators for the last 10 years and governments. They really don't understand anything we're talking here. Okay, it's a fact, with the exception of you guys. And this really, we'd have to take this serious. If we don't take this serious, we're not going to solve the problem. Then the second thing is I think what you guys are doing, and I think in a good point from my experience as well, is we have to create these case studies and then make sure that FTX, for instance, was the biggest donor for the previous administration, let's put it that way. And of course it happened what happened. But at the end of the day, it was not actually a failure of the blockchain or of crypto. It was a failure of the regulators in a lot of ways, okay, the US regulators. So, but I think here the point is that that narrative became so big that put the crypto industry all down. So we need to push the narrative to the top. And the narrative has to be positive, but as well realistic. There's a lot of fantastic things happening. And the last thing is, I think the players here, which we all represent, we have to be more united and more focused on creating solutions, not just blah, blah, blah. I think that's what I'm doing, building products that work. And I think that's what we do.
Just want to make a quick comment. So one of the things that I'm trying to do personally is to build an image in everyone's head. Like, what is the product? What is the benefit? How does it look like? And I saw success at the corporate level when I was not in crypto, when I was in finance and fintech. It always worked. Every time I wanted to sell an idea, I had to build that image. Look at these people, at this person going and getting a loan, and how that person now can buy the house, and something like that. And I started to do this most recently in this industry, and that's when I started getting people actually listening, building that image, not just the narrative, but that image is a slight change on the conversation.
I want to thank everyone. I don't know if there's one last question. It's been fantastic. And thank you all for being here until the end. And well, thank you all. You guys are fantastic and keep doing great work. We all need it. Cheers. Thank you all.